and welcome to another episode of LSVT Global's podcast, Think Big and Loud, where we share inspiring stories, expert insights, and engaging conversations, all designed to empower and uplift the lives of individuals with neurological conditions and those who love and support them. My name is Beth Peterson, and I'll be your host for the show. Today's episode features special guest Heather Hodges, and she's here to talk about the Speech Accessibility Project. Heather is a speech language pathologist and the Speech Accessibility Project's lead speech mentor with a focus on the Parkinson's population. So, Heather will go into much greater depth on what this project is, but I'll just give you a quick overview so you know a little bit about what to expect today. So, the Speech Accessibility Project is an interdisciplinary initiative led by the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and it's supported by major tech companies Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, and Microsoft. And it aims to collect and curate diverse speech data to train machine learning models, making voice recognition systems more inclusive and effective for all users. So think about Alexa, Siri, Talk to Tech. So these are all the types of devices that they're working on to make it more inclusive for everybody. So Heather is going to talk to us in great detail about the study. And so we're very excited to have her here. I know you've been deeply involved in this work. So thank you for joining us. I look forward to learning more about the Speech Accessibility Project from you today.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here and to be able to talk about this really amazing initiative.
Oh, great. Well, do you mind starting in and telling us just a little bit about your role in the project?
Absolutely. So, my role I've been fortunate that it started toward the beginning of the Speech Accessibility Project, which I might sometimes refer to as SAP for short. And we were able to connect with the research team at the University of Illinois early on. They wanted to work with Parkinson's disease and the related disorders under the umbrella of Parkinson's first and foremost. And so we were able to help get in some of the early development in terms of how to engage participants and assist participants through the study so that they were able to feel comfortable and confident in doing a study on technology. Even if they weren't super familiar or super comfortable, we add sort of the human touch and take patients with a Parkinson's diagnosis and help them through every step of the study, from learning about what is involved, learning about the aims of the study, doing screenings to see who's appropriate, and then also guiding them through the project as they complete it at home, which I'll get into more detail about that here in a minute. They have someone to guide them. They have someone that they know a face and a name virtually, so that they are comfortable, they're empowered, and honestly, they have fun during the study.
Oh, that's great. Well, and then for our audience, can you just give us a little bit of information about like what the Speech Accessibility Project is and what are its primary goals?
Absolutely. So the Speech Accessibility Project aims to make those devices, those applications that you mentioned, Alexa, Siri, Talk to Text, even talking to a menu on the phone where you have to use your voice to pick the options and be recognized before they hang up on you. And so the aim is to get that working for everybody. We want to make sure that technology helps us communicate and is not a frustration. And so what SAP aims to do is to make devices across different platforms, brands, whether it's Apple, Android, a Microsoft project, an Alexa from Amazon. It's really cool because we see that these technology companies have come together to collaborate. instead of compete, which we can't often say with big companies. But in this case, they really recognize the need for making technology accessible to those who have voice and speech changes, challenges, and disorders. They want to make it so that these automatic speech recognition systems understand everybody.
It seems like a very important project. And you kind of led into what I wanted to ask next, which is how did this collaboration start? So between the university, LSVT Global, and these major tech companies.
So interestingly enough, it actually started during the pandemic. Right before then, Bob McDonald, who is an engineer at Google, got in touch with LSVT Global, knowing that they also planned to start their research on automatic speech recognition systems with the Parkinson disease population as well. And they recognized that LSVT was a leader in research with patients, in collecting voice samples from patients. And so initially the thought was, did we have a repository of voice and speech samples that perhaps they could use to improve the Google technology? And in conversations with Dr. Lorraine Ramig and Bob McDonald, it was really determined, as well as with the engineers and them really realizing what they needed, that while our recording repository was very dynamic, it was very, very large, having patients record more on a live basis. And so rather than taking pre-recorded speech, they recognized that they needed to have current recordings that would match different stimuli, different phrases and speech, sayings and samples that were determined by the engineers. And so that's where we started working with patients in the here and now, rather than going to a former data set. And so that began the initial programs with the research, and it was an initiative called Project Euphonia. And we did a few phases of this type of research with them, where we were able to get brief speech samples from patients with Parkinson's, PSP, MSA, CBD, sort of those Parkinsonisms, as well as idiopathic Parkinson disease. And through doing a few phases of that research, and so that's also where Bob recognized that if he could get the other major tech companies that use automatic speech recognition on board, and to really come at it of a place of, instead of competing, collaborating, that this was born. And so through their work, through also finding a university with a very robust research team in computer technology, in accessibility technology, through the Beckman Institute is the specific site at the University of Illinois that heads this. And once those logistics were worked out, that's when we were called upon to join their team, to work with them on making the experience very patient and participant friendly, looking at it from a clinical standpoint, having speech clinicians who are experts in the area of Parkinson's disease and voice and speech to join in the recruitment, the screening, the training, and that human touch that we're really fortunate. We get to meet people from all over the United States and now into Canada as well, and work with them on simply providing voice samples for the study. And really the primary aims of this research is to make technology understand all the voices, all different types of speech patterns. And so it's actually really helpful for us when we get patients who have speech challenges, speech that perhaps has changed as a result of their Parkinson's disease. Instead of the initial approach with all of our devices, where those devices were programmed on very perfect speech, very clear, very loud, very appropriate rate. And so that's not how most of us talk. I think all of us have that experience where Alexa or Siri doesn't understand us, or our talk to text results in something wildly different from what we said. And when you compound that with somebody who has a voice or speech disorder, that's really frustrating. And where technology could be helpful in keeping people engaged, communicating, getting their informational needs met from their devices, instead it's an area of frustration. And so the aim is to take that frustration away and allow all of the voice recognition technology to be accessible to people across the board. And I think people who need it even more in terms of successfully communicating despite having disordered or challenged voice and speech.
Yeah, that all makes sense. So, what type of speech patterns and disabilities does the project focus on?
Really good question. That's so important because oftentimes we see where some patients might think that they don't have the type of speech issue, or maybe they don't have a problem with speech yet, or perhaps they recognize they have an issue and they feel a little bit shy about their voice and speech. And so we invite everybody to sign up for an informational call from myself or one of the other speech mentors on the team, where we can discuss with you what you notice about your voice and speech. When is it different? Are there times it's more challenging than others? And really, the bottom line is there's not a voice that's too mild or that's too severe to reach out to us. We, as trained speech language pathologists with focused expertise on Parkinson's disease, we can help make the determination of if somebody is appropriate for the study, or if they have the voice and speech that the engineering team is currently looking for. Their research is ongoing, and it's been unfolding in the time that we've been on this project. They're already making great strides in the improvement of the technology. And so we, being tied in to the engineers, know what they're looking for. And so we can help to guide what dynamically and currently is being recruited. So, so it's the big range, whether you think you have a voice or speech challenge or not, or if you do know that you are impacted, we invite you to contact us.
And you mentioned that you collect all the data virtually. Can you talk a little bit about how the project does collect and manage the data from participants?
Absolutely. One of the best parts about this project is that patients with Parkinson's can do it from home. They can do it from the comfort of their own house. They don't have to go to the speech clinic or to a research center. It is all done online, and it's accessed into the University of Illinois' online research platform. And so there it's secure, it's all done through the cloud, so you don't have to download anything to your device, you don't have to upload your recordings. It's all saved in real time, and so the burden is very minimal in terms of technology. And we provide patients, once they have enrolled in the study and been screened and trained on how to use the platform. And only those individuals are provided access to the research platform once you've been screened and trained by one of the clinicians on the team.
Great. Well, and how might improved speech recognition technology benefit people with diverse speech patterns in their daily lives? I know you mentioned it a little bit before. Can you go into a little more depth on that?
Yeah, I think that's so important because there's a multitude of ways that this can benefit individuals. When we think about talk to text, someone being able to send a message to their daughter or their loved one without having to navigate the teeny tiny keyboard on our phone, those keyboards are hard to navigate. And if you're an individual with a tremor, they're often impossible. And so people don't try to communicate that way. Then they attempt to talk to text, and the talk to text is so wildly incorrect on what they just said, they simply give up. And that communication with their loved one is gone. They just don't send it, they give up, and they walk away from it. And so from that kind of everyday impact, to the motoric factor, the motor issues that come along with Parkinson's, where navigating on a device is difficult. Instead, if I could simply tell my device to open up my email, draft a message, and send it to a colleague, or send that text wishing my grandson a happy birthday, etc., there is that component to it. There's also, I feel, a safety component to it as well. These voice recognition systems are getting more and more prevalent and advanced, with things like smart plugs, or even the Nest that controls our thermostat at home, or perhaps even is tied into our security system. If we could activate that with our voice, if we could turn on the lights in the living room by simply saying, Google, turn on my lights, without having to navigate a dark room, without having to walk across a room with a walker, or turn on the Nest from afar. If you can do that from your voice, rather than having to physically move to that spot, that can really help a lot of individuals as well. It eliminates that walking in the dark, perhaps tripping over something, knocking into things to try to get to that lamp. So even from that standpoint, where communication can make it easier to be in our homes and to control our homes, from that perspective, it's really important as well. So, accessibility is a human right, and we want accessibility for communication with community, family, loved ones, work, and for us to be safer in our homes. I also think about Alexa, or Siri, where you can put reminders in, like, remind me to refill my prescription on August 25th at 5 a.m. So that way you can also have that real life reminder, the virtual voice accessible to-do list or calendar that's kept on those devices. There's so many ways to use them that a lot of people don't even think about, because they have that hard stop where they feel like their Siri or Alexa never understands them, so I don't even use it. So all of that applicability is really brought to people, and that accessibility has opened the door for them.
Wow, even just hearing you talk about that, all those applications are not even ones that had crossed my mind, that there are so many possibilities, and this could be really life-changing if they can be heard clearly on the devices.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so I know LSVT Global's involved on the project. How are other disability community organizations involved in shaping the development?
So after the first leg of the study was launched with Parkinson's disease, it has now been opened up to other diagnoses, including ALS, where Team Gleason is a major player in that recruitment and the mentoring of participants. They're also working with individuals with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. We have great organizations and help from the clinics at University of Illinois for those populations. And they're also working with individuals post-stroke. So it's really great, because what they have done is not just put clinical people on the ground to help these folks, but instead what they've done is reached out to the organizations, to the clinicians who really have an expertise in each of the diagnoses. That way they are aware of the possible challenges with motor or technology, or the differences in how voice or speech may present across those populations. And so we're making sure that we're getting representative samples from each of the different etiologies behind the voice and speech disorder. And so it's collaboration within those teams. It's also cross collaboration where all of the mentors, regardless of etiology, can share what works best, what the engineers are needing can be communicated across the teams. And as we launch into Canada, we can also keep in touch as to what works recruiting wise as we step into a new country. So there's kind of collaboration within each team. You're working with a specialist in your specific etiology, and you also have the across the board collaboration within each team and the folks at the University of Illinois.
Wow. Well, and I understand the study is ongoing, but do you have any type of initial results or any indications that the project is working, is doing what it's aiming to do?
Yes, there actually is a recent publication in HLR on initial findings. So it was published within the first 211, I believe, participants in the Parkinson's subgroup specifically. And it's really cool what they found. They found that by collecting these speech samples from individuals with Parkinson's and having the automatic speech recognizer be programmed with these hours and hours of data across the 211 participants, that recognizer was 30% more accurate than a control model that had not listened to people with Parkinson's disease. Wow. And so as we get more individuals involved in the study, we get a bigger and bigger sample of speech. We see that is hopefully just going to continue to improve. So it's really exciting to see the changes occurring right now. And we don't have to wait 5 years. We don't have to wait for the completion of the enrollment phase, that those teams are on the ground. They're working on it now. They're already improving things. So that's been super exciting to see.
That's really exciting. 30%. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's huge. And I should say too, when I say hours of speech recordings, there for each individual in the study, it's not hours and hours and hours of your recording. I will say that to make it as approachable as possible, most of the recordings from participants are things we say to a device. So turn up the volume, set an alarm, call my daughter. So those short phrases. I don't want anyone intimidating, thinking that they have to read, long lines of text that's just ongoing. It really is all pretty short in the phrases. Sometimes they also ask people to explain something like, tell us about your favorite lunch. And that's because we understand that the way we talk when we're reading a phrase is different than how we talk when we're thinking off the top of our heads. So while those are fewer of the prompts, they are there just to get that real life running speech. And that's helpful too, because a lot of times when we're talking to our device, it's running speech off the top of our heads. It might not just be a simple command. So they really span the spectrum of how we may be using our devices.
And I don't know if this is something you would know, but if you say that it's made improvements up, 30%, that it's better at understanding, have those been incorporated into devices yet, or how does that work?
Yes, I believe so. The data, the programming that is occurring, the improvements with the recognizers that the engineers are able to achieve are available to the technology companies. And so I can say clinically, I have had some participants come back and say, I think my Alexa understands me more than it used to. Whether that's coincidence or whether they're just tuned into that. But I know that ongoing improvements are accessible so that those changes can start to occur across the devices.
Mhm. That's exciting. Well, and so you might have piqued some interest from audience members. So can you talk about, who can participate, what types of, I know you said, mild to severe, but are there certain populations? I know you've talked a little bit about that. So like what types of populations can participate and how do they get involved in the project if they are interested?
So the populations, anybody diagnosed with Parkinson's disease would work with my team, and then looking into the ALS, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, post-stroke. Those are the specific teams. But I will say, if there's a different diagnosis, a different etiology that I didn't mention, we have had individuals sign up for this study with other etiologies as well. And so we screen them just like we would anybody else and try to find the most appropriate team for them to work with. So while it's those 5 teams, it is open to other etiologies as well. As far as qualifying for the study, we want to make sure that you have a device to record from. So you want to have internet, and whether it's a phone, a tablet, a computer, whether it's desktop or laptop, those are the technology requirements. We do also have the opportunity, if you need somebody to help you with the study. So if you're not very technologically savvy, or if you're worried about motor or tremor getting in the way of clicking a mouse, or if you just want and feel more comfortable having your favorite family member do the study with you, please know that we don't want technology to intimidate or get in somebody's way. We can absolutely work with an individual and a helper. Those who participate in the study are provided with a little bit of a thank you compensation, whether you're the participant or the helper. So if you do have someone who's helping you, we recognize that your time, their time is very valuable. So both would be provided with compensation, a modest thank you for time and effort. So while having access to technology is necessary, being comfortable with that technology, that's our job. We're there to make it work for you. We're there to troubleshoot. We're there to train you and be with you every step of the way. I've had patients who've said, I don't ever get on my computer. I don't know if I can do this. And they do. They feel that confidence. They feel that it's a very user-friendly platform. They also know that we are here whenever they need us. And so it's not just being signed up and you go on your own. You've got somebody there every step of the way to make it as easy as possible. So within that, those are really the requirements for what we're looking for in the study. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, don't feel like you have to make the call on if your voice would qualify or not. That's something that we can work with you on. We'll assess, we'll find perhaps the time or condition where maybe your voice might be different, and or changed or challenged, so that we can really capture what the team is looking for at each stage of the research. So, and we get to meet people from all over, which we love. So so that's sort of the overview of who we're looking for. And as far as getting involved in the study, we do have a registration link. The registration link is simply a way for us to know that you'd like to be contacted, that you want us to reach out to you and give you more information about the study. It does not obligate you in any way. It's merely a way for us to open the door to tell you more about the research, answer your questions that may have arisen, and to talk about next steps so that it's as feasible and easy for you. And so we also have a flyer that has clickable codes, QR codes to get to that registration. You can also contact me through the LSVT Global channels as well as one of the faculty. My email address or even the info at lsvtglobal.com can get routed to me. So there's lots of ways to reach out.
Awesome. Well, perfect. So, and I can put some of that in the podcast description. So, Heather talks about the registration form. I'll link that. I'll also put in the flyer if you want to look through the flyer or distribute the flyer. And then also, we'll have some email addresses for contact as well. So, I can put all that in the description. So, thanks for sharing that. And I did just want to clarify, I think earlier you said, is it open to the United States and Canada?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And then lastly, I know you've mentioned a little bit about, what's been found so far, but how can listeners stay updated as the study continues and, what the findings are, what the progress is now that you've
So
gotten everybody on board and
yeah,
excited?
it's so exciting. And it is fun to see that progress in, sort of real time, so to speak. So the Beckman Institute at University of Illinois is one means to stay updated through a simple Google search or through going to the website that's listed. That will connect you. LSVT Global is also putting out updates. We have links to the abstract of the current study that I mentioned earlier. We also will post on our social media pages so that those updates are shared and you can really see the effect that the study is having as we improve technology for those with challenged voice and speech.
Oh, that's great. And that reminds me, I can also link that abstract that you were talking about. So if people are interested in the current findings, I'll make sure those are easy to access too. Well, and
Perfect.
Heather,
That's great.
I don't know if you have any final words to share. I really appreciate your time and learning about the project. So I'll leave it to you here at the end.
Well, thank you so much for this. It's really, truly so exciting. I love this project. I'm very passionate about this project, and to see the device companies coming together in a collaborative way is really moving. But even more so, it's really moving working with the patients, working with those folks who are frustrated that they're not understood by technology, who want to engage and use technology more to their benefit or to that feeling of having increased safety if they could ask their phone to call their doctor's office or call for help, etc. And so it's been, I think, for a lot of folks, they express a gratitude for people putting those with Parkinson's first and wanting to improve the lives. And it's been fun. It goes really fast. It's a fun project. It's something that even those who maybe aren't super technologically inclined have said they really enjoyed engaging with, and they ask what's next, can I do it again, what's the next phase, and we tell them we'll keep in touch with them. So that's been really amazing to see the engagement, and recruiting is ongoing. We can't have too many people in the study. And so please share as well. That'd be my last ask, is if people watching the podcast can share the links, share the documents with support groups, with their neurologists. There's, a really dynamic presence within people with Parkinson's, where the community really is engaged and the community is active and the support groups are dynamic and wonderful, and all these great ways that we can share this study that's so very important. So, and of course, if questions come up, I'm just an email away. So I'm happy to engage even before you sign up for the study if need be. But otherwise, enrolling in the study is the next best step for those patients who are listening.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Heather. I appreciate you taking the time to share this information with us, sharing all about the study, how it's going, how to get involved. It really is an exciting and empowering project. So thank you for your work on it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really been my pleasure.
Well, great. I'm just going to go ahead and close with some credits with the podcast. So, the song that you're hearing at the beginning and the end, this is called Think Loud for Parkinson's. It's by Kindred Spirit and Leo Sayer. And this song and video were inspired by LSVT Loud speech treatment and were developed to raise awareness for Parkinson's worldwide. It's available for purchase on iTunes and Amazon, with proceeds being split between UK charity Cure Parkinson's and the Parkinson's Foundation in the US. I also want to thank our production team, CS Design Studios, for doing all the magic to make the podcast come to life. And for those that might be interested in learning more about LSVT Loud or LSVT Big, speech therapy or physical and occupational therapy, or if you want to locate a therapist in your area, visit lsvtglobal.com. We also encourage you to click the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast so that you never miss an episode. And again, a big thank you to Heather Hodges with the Speech Accessibility Project. Thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to thinking big and loud with you again next time. Take care.